Global Economic Analysis, mid-2025. Overview. The global economy is navigating a delicate balancing act. Slowing growth, diverging monetary policies, and heightened geopolitical risk, particularly in the Middle East. Inflation pressures are easing in many developed economies, prompting central banks to pause or even pivot dovishly. However, the broader investment climate remains fragile due to ongoing trade disputes, political uncertainty, and energy market volatility. United States. Growth has decelerated below trend 1.8%, with business investment softening and consumer sentiment mixed. Inflation is moderating, approaching the Fed's 2% target, giving the Federal Reserve room to pause. Monetary policy. The Fed is holding rates steady, signaling data-dependent caution, with futures markets pricing potential cuts by Q4. Labor market. Employment remains strong, though wage growth is plateauing. Trade and risk. Tariff uncertainty and Iran crisis add downside risks to export sectors and investor sentiment. Eurozone. Activity is stabilizing after a mild winter slowdown, helped by falling energy prices and resilient domestic demand. ECB has cut rates to 2%, hinting at a pause, citing improved inflation trends and financial stability concerns. Political fractures persist across the bloc, and upcoming regional elections may challenge fiscal unity. Currency strength reflects lower U.S. dollar confidence more than Eurozone optimism. United Kingdom. GDP growth remains modest but steady. Consumer data and services PMI show resilience. BOE is under pressure to ease policy as inflation slows. A rate cut is expected this summer. Sterling strength may cap exports, but reflects investor confidence post-Brexit trade deal finalizations. China. Post-COVID recovery is uneven. Infrastructure spending and rate cuts continue, but haven't fully reignited demand. Exports are weighed down by global trade tensions and weaker U.S. consumer demand. Monetary policy is supportive. The PBOC maintains easing bias to stimulate internal growth. Japan. Growth is subdued. Core inflation remains under 2%, keeping the BOJ dovish. Yen weakness continues as investors seek risk, despite a traditional safe haven appeal. Yield control remains in place. Markets remain skeptical of imminent tightening. Canada. Growth is threatened by renewed U.S. tariffs and energy market instability linked to Middle East tensions. BXC is cautious, holding at 2.75% with a neutral to dovish tone. CAD remains sensitive to oil prices and risk flows. Middle East impact. Iran crisis. The escalation involving Iran is roiling energy markets. Oil prices have risen sharply on fears of supply disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz. Inflationary pressures. Higher oil may slow disinflation globally, particularly in energy-importing countries. Safe haven flows. Gold, U.S. Treasuries, and the Swiss franc are seeing strong inflows. Global trade. Risk premiums are rising, especially for EM sovereign debt and shipping-linked assets. Commodities and energy. Oil. Brent trading above $95 as Iran-related fears rise. Gold. Breakout above $2,150 as investors hedge geopolitical and currency risk. Industrial metals. Weak Chinese demand limits upside despite supply issues. Market sentiment and outlook. Equities. Risk-on bias holds but is vulnerable to shocks. FX markets. USD remains under pressure. Euro, pound, and CHF benefit. Bonds. Yields have softened amid safe haven demand and easing inflation. Risks. Iran conflict escalation. U.S. fiscal gridlock. China slowdown and unexpected policy pivots. Conclusion. The global economy is treading a fine line between stabilization and renewed volatility. Central banks are largely stepping back, but geopolitical shocks, especially around Iran, could derail recent gains. Currencies, commodities, and equities are all reacting to both macroeconomic fundamentals and sudden political shifts. Strategic positioning will depend on clarity from policymakers, resolution of key flashpoints, and investor sentiment in Q3. Sources used for data validation. Reuters Economics. IMF World Economic Outlook. Investing.com Macroeconomic Calendar. Central Bank Meeting Notes. Fed, ECB, BOE, BXC, BOJ, PBOC. Sucked in financial market commentary. OENDA technical analysis tools. Energy Information Administration, EIA, reports. Bloomberg terminal updates via summaries.